Welcome back to the deep dive. We had a really remarkable source sent in by you this week. It was this audio excerpt from Venkataramana, who's associated with Vijnanamitra.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating.
It really was. It tackles this huge question that I think is on a lot of people's minds in this, super complex, high-speed, kind of turbulent world we're in. Where does spiritual life actually stand?
Is it fading, or is it doing something else?
Exactly. Is it thriving in ways we just aren't noticing?
It's such a critical question. And I think the common narrative, it always leans towards decline, spiritual decline, more cynicism.
Sure.
But what Venkataramana does, he just cuts right through that. He looks at actual observable trends in society, in devotion.
So our mission today really is to unpack his main argument, which is, and I found this pretty counterintuitive, that even though we're in this age that's traditionally defined as imbalanced, we're seeing these intense, high-contrast examples of both the spiritual and the non-spiritual.
Right. It's not a slow fade into gray. It's becoming more black and white, more polarized.
That's the part that really hooked me, because we're talking about the Kali Yuga framework, this age of, let's say, spiritual struggle. And you'd expect, I don't know, a kind of general apathy to set in.
A slow fizzle.
A slow fizzle, yeah. But the source is saying, no, we're actually witnessing extremes. We aren't seeing moderation. We're seeing intense examples on both sides of that Dharma versus Adharma spectrum.
Precisely. And he acknowledges the one side of it, right? If you define Adharma as, unrighteousness or non-spiritual acts, its presence is obvious. It's prominent. It's aggressive. You see it all over the media.
You can't miss it.
You can't. That's a given. But he uses that as the baseline to introduce his main point, which is where you see that extreme unrighteousness, there's an equally intense, equally visible surge in righteousness and devotion happening at the same time.
That is a really bold claim.
Yeah.
Because it just runs completely contrary to the idea that chaos simply overwhelms faith.
It does. It forces you to look at it differently. The spiritual principles are manifesting as these extreme instances. The traditional context, as he points out, is that Dharma righteousness stands on just one foot, while Dharma has three.
Right.
We all see the 3 feet of Adharma. But what he's saying is that that single foot of Dharma is showing, massive strength right now. It's pushing back.
Okay, let's unpack this. So if the evidence for Adharma is everywhere, easy to spot, where is he finding this flourishing, intense evidence for Dharma?
Well, this is the pivot in his whole argument. He says it's in the dramatic and sustained increase in Bhakti, in devotion.
Specifically communal devotion, right?
That's the key. The move from the abstract idea of faith to tangible human action. He's observing a mass movement, a noticeable widespread growth in Bhakti.
And it's not just passive belief.
No, not at all. It's translating into highly organized collective action. That's the real indicator.
So let's get into what that actually looks like today, because it's taken on a new form. He's talking about a huge increase in collective worship, these communal pujas and group devotional singing, the bhajans and kirtans.
It's almost like a reaction, isn't it? In an age of digital isolation, people are actively seeking out that spiritual connection through community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's the psychological driver. If life is fragmented, you look for something to bring it together.
And what really shows the scale of it, the commitment, is the logistical change, he points out.
The function halls.
The function halls. The move from a small gathering in someone's home to renting these huge commercial spaces for these events.
That detail is just absolutely fascinating to me. When you hear that groups are routinely booking large function halls, I mean, these are massive spaces, just to get together and sing. It says so much.
It speaks volumes.
It's not a few families anymore. It's hundreds, maybe thousands of people all wanting a shared spiritual space at the same time.
And think about the infrastructure that requires, the sociology of it. It means the spiritual impulse is so strong that it needs serious organization. It needs funding, planning.
It's almost like an industrialized form of devotion.
In a way, yeah. It's adapted to meet the demands of a large, modern, urban population. It completely refutes the idea that faith is just, retreating into a quiet corner.
No, it's stepping out onto a public stage, a very big public stage.
It has to. In a world with endless distractions, these organized, large-scale gatherings provide a kind of structure and focus that might be hard to achieve on your own.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because he doesn't just stop with the function halls.
Yeah.
He anticipates the cynic, the person who says, okay, but that's just one activity. Who really cares about Dharma anymore?
Right. Show me the bigger picture.
And he does. He provides these really powerful, concrete examples to show that this dedication is thriving at every level, from the national all the way down to the neighborhood.
And the power in those examples is that they are so visible, they're permanent. On a monumental scale, you have something like the construction of the Rama temple in Ayodhya after all those years.
That's no small act.
It's not a fleeting thing. It's a globally recognized, multi-generational project. It has profound spiritual significance for millions. It's a clear physical proof point that this dedication to Dharma isn't some ancient memory.
It's an active driving force right now.
And alongside that, he brings up the proper celebration of these huge, complex events like the Pushkarams,
The river festival.
the river festivals. I mean, to organize an event of that size with millions of people, the logistics, the security, all across this sacred geography, it takes this deep collective commitment.
It's a kind of systemic rebuttal to the idea of spiritual decline. You just can't pull that off with apathy.
Impossible. But then he brings it right down to the local level. And this, to me, was maybe the most surprising proof point.
The apartment complexes.
The apartment complexes. He talks about the magnificent organization of festivals within these modern residential communities.
What's fascinating here, that this tackles the friction point of modern urban life head on. Apartment life can be so anonymous.
Right. Very individualistic.
Exactly. And yet he's observing that major festivals, Vinayaka Chaviti, Sri Ramanavami, Dasara Utsavam, they're being celebrated and celebrated beautifully in these exact settings.
Think about what that takes. You have to coordinate with dozens, maybe hundreds of neighbors from all different backgrounds. You have to get space, you have to handle money, all the details.
All for a spiritual observance. It shows this immense commitment at a really grassroots level.
It suggests the spiritual impulse is so strong it actually overrides the normal social barriers of modern life. People are coming together to achieve spiritual goals.
So it's this persistent, small-scale activity that really powers the whole thing. It counters that whole narrative of modern individualism.
So you have the monumental stuff, the temples and the festivals, and then you have this granular daily evidence from the apartment blocks and the function halls.
Right.
The whole picture he presents is one where this visible, sustained spiritual activity is actually flourishing. It shows a kind of resilience that I think a lot of people overlook.
So if we step back and pull all this together, the message from the source is actually, well, it's fundamentally hopeful, isn't it?
Very.
Given all this evidence of flourishing, intense Dharma, his core conclusion is that there's no need to worry, no need to feel distressed about the way things are.
That reassurance is the emotional core of it. But then the analysis goes a bit deeper, to a conclusion about human nature itself.
Which is?
That spiritual awareness, this inclination towards the spiritual, is present in everyone by default.
By default. I love that phrasing.
It's a fundamental part of the human condition. It's not something that can just be erased by societal change.
That's such a stabilizing thought. Because if spirituality is baked into us, then the struggles we're seeing aren't about some kind of spiritual void.
Exactly. It's more about the difficulty of expression in a complicated world. The source is clear. The only difference is in the expression, how it comes out.
Okakaru oka vidhanga vyaktikarana chestuntaru.
Each person expresses it in their own unique way. For some, it's a quiet, solitary ritual. For it seems an increasing number, it's this big, collective, visible effort. It's renting the hall or organizing the festival in the apartment complex.
So what does this all mean for us today? It means that this age is defined less by a total lack of righteousness and more by the diverse, sometimes surprising and very visible ways that our inherent spiritual nature manages to express itself.
Even against the odds.
Even against the odds, yeah.
And that means, as the source concludes, we can actually be joyful about this. We can be optimistic. The vital signs of communal spiritual life are strong, and they're adapting to modern life.
The human desire for shared faith is finding new, modern ways to sustain itself. It's a really compelling argument against cynicism.
It is. It shows that structure and faith aren't enemies. They can coexist.
So, to sum up, we've really just analyzed Venkataramana's argument that despite the traditional definition of Kali Yuga, our current era is rich with these visible, communal expressions of Bhakti.
And that leads to a final thought for you to consider. If we accept his premise that spiritual awareness is inherent in everyone, it's a default setting. How does that change the way we look at those extreme acts of adharma, of unrighteousness that we see? Is that struggle we see on the news fundamentally about the method of expression? Is it a misdirected search for purpose, for meaning, rather than a true absence of that spiritual inclination itself?
Wow. That's a challenging thought. That the core impulse could be the same, but the expression, the outcome, is just dramatically different.
It makes you wonder if every act, good or ill, is somehow rooted in that same default human need for meaning.
Something profound to mull over. Thank you for diving deep with us on this one today. And thank you, our listeners, for sharing the sources that drive these kinds of conversations.